Astra Travelers, and welcome to the Season 4 finale of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we talked all about the little baby Melazines and their Papa Alinus.
This week, we're finally walking you through the Genshin the manga.
Looking for some visual material for this episode dedicated to visual material? Check us out at talesofteyvat.com, where you can see slutty Venti.
Finally!
Our site also includes links to previous episodes, all of which include an artist spotlight for each topic and some other goodies, which also includes a growing resource section that includes the English version of the manga that we'll be discussing.
Which also means more slutty Venti!
That means 2 places of slutty Venti.
Slutty Venti!
Need to be say more. Slutty Vanessa and Slutty Venti.
Woo! The slutty V squared.
And you know what? And slutty Amber, because I saw some booty shorts.
When is she not wearing booty shorts?
She was like sticking her butt up in the air. Yeah.
There were cheeks.
Well, finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in our upcoming seasons. Additionally, a reminder to travelers that we have started a collaborative Discord server with the Shade Chamber podcast. If you're interested in joining, you can go to bit.ly/shades-of-Teyvat. No spaces, no capitals, no nothing. And you can come hang out with us, talk to us about Genshin, Honkai, much to Tiff's dismay. Share some of your favorite Genshin merch with us, artists. Share your own writings. I've read a lot of amazing fan fictions from the Discord server this week, so definitely make sure to check it out.
Yeah, commiserate with me about the departure of the Argenti voice actor.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions about that. But that being said, today we are finally talking about the Genshin Impact Manga. So a few quick things about the manga in case travelers have never heard of it. They have no idea what we're talking about. They've been confused every time we bring it up in an episode of what this mysterious manga could be. The manga is posted, I don't want to say legally, but like legitimately in 2 locations, which is Webtoon, which you can also get an app. That's where Lore Olympus originally started, and also on the Genshin Impact website. The first chapter, which is the first part of the prologue, was released on November 23rd of 2018, which is a little less than 2 years before the game got released in September of 2020. The final chapter was released in early 2020, most likely February, but because the last 2 chapters weren't officially translated into English, I can't tell you the official date for those. The webtoon describes the manga as, quote-unquote, saying, "Eons ago, the elder elemental gods granted civilization to the human race. But the world soon splintered as corruption and greed grew without check. Can the forces holding this world together be balanced against human desires? Or is everything ultimately doomed to end in destruction?" So, ominous as Genshin likes to do.
It's doomed. Definitely doomed.
Definitely doomed, as per usual.
Oh, the doomed.
And the manga, the storyline that takes place in the manga, not in the prologue, but in the main storyline, is said to take place 6 months to a year prior to the beginning of the game. Which we actually talked about recently, how crazy that is, that like Ether and or Illumine, whoever you are, was probably hanging out with Paimon on the beach of Mondstadt while this was all happening. I know that I've personally read the manga way too many times to count because my Genshin fanfic is actually currently taking place during the manga. So I keep reading it to make sure that I am staying as canon as possible to it. But what was everyone else's first interactions with the manga? Did it take you a few months to find out about it? Did you know about it right away? I feel like it took me a few months into playing the game to hear about it.
You told me about it, so...
Oh, perfect.
I know we've talked about this briefly before in previous episodes. I, of course, read it early on.
I'm pretty sure we're having this episode simply to make me read it.
No. Own it. No.
So when I first started the game, Feeny told me, "Oh, there's a manga." And I'm like, "Oh, is there?" So I found it pretty readily, and then I think I didn't find the last 2 chapters. I was so confused after chapter 13. Or is it 13 or 14?
Isn't it the last 3 chapters that we're missing from Webtoons?
Yeah, from 14 to 16 is what we're missing. And I was like, "Aw." okay. Yeah, I couldn't find more, so I went to Reddit and I found it via Reddit and like read it via a Reddit thread. Oh my god. Sally sells
You read it
shisha.
via
Why does
Reddit.
she sure? Because like people were posting each thing, and the one I was reading, I think, was a fan translation because some of the grammar was a bit off, and I was like, okay, I'm used to it. I'm not gonna say I pirated manga, but I've definitely gone to sites where manga or manhwas were not translated yet, or not like at least available yet.
Mhm.
So that's how I found it, and then like I completely forgot about it. And then we're like, oh, let's do the manga. I brushed up on it a couple of times because, like, we go over so many of the events that happen within these chapters.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're reading hundreds and hundreds of pages of manga, when in reality, it's only 16 chapters, totaling up to maybe 200, 300 pages.
Yeah, I would say that the whole manga took me like an hour to read, maybe.
Yeah.
Not much more.
They pack in a lot of lore in a short amount of pages. So I know what you mean. I had the same experience of, reading the first 13 and then I was like, that's it. It ends like that. And I don't remember how I discovered the other ones, but I was probably just Googling it. I was also used to reading Hoyo manga because of Honkai Impact, because they have a lot of manga tie-ins with that game, but they're all like over the place. Like Honkai Impact is very like mixed media in that way, where it's like you play a chapter of the game and then you got to go read this other manga for, this part. And then they'll have like little in-between throwaway ones, but then they'll have ones that are like really core to the plot. And I think I actually read the Genshin manga before I ever started playing Honkai Impact. But once I started playing it, I realized, oh, this is like a thing that they do. And I was really confused as to why they kept that going for so long with Honkai.
But not with Genshin.
I'm sure they intended to start it and like keep it going throughout the game. And I'm really kind of sad that we didn't get more, because there was so much that they were able to explore in the Honkai mangas that they could have fleshed out in Genshin.
Mhm.
Do you think that's all they put into all like the hidden books and things like that instead?
Well, to a degree, maybe, because there is not as much stuff like that Honkai Impact. I mean, there is now in like Honkai Impact Part 2, but in Part 1, there isn't that sort of like library archive type of lore. I mean, there might be, but I don't think there is, if I'm remembering correctly. So I do think, I think you might be right, Tiff. I think maybe they just turn that into like in-game books and stuff. But I mean, who wants to read a tome in the game when you could see images of it in the past via a manga? Like, it was way more exciting to read the Honkai Impact mangas than books in Genshin.
I mean, I'm not going to say I beg to differ, but the Argonian maid from Skyrim, like the books in Skyrim hold me at my core. So I kind of like, I prefer the in-game books just as personal preference.
Do you mean in general, or do you mean in Genshin as well?
In games in general.
Okay.
But on the flip side of that, I enjoy looking at like the mangas like Honkai the Third and Genshin when it comes to like smaller storyline aspects. Like we're looking at more relationship centric, like how we see, and we'll go through this, of Amber and Collei, and Lisa and Jean, and even Kaya, Jean, and Lisa together. I enjoy those small things. I feel like the more game stuff or like lore stuff, I want to find a bit more, like work harder at, than to go through a manga.
Well, and that's the thing with Genshin, is that most of the in-game books and stuff are from like way back in the past.
Yeah.
And they have nothing to do with like the current characters necessarily. I mean, some of them do, but a lot of them don't. In Honkai Impact, it was like there are mangas that are like, they're all about like Bronya and Sela, or about Kiana's parents. So, and like her origin story, like there's so much that like adds to the story. That game, just in terms of like technologically, was like more limited than Genshin, of course. Like it's using like a way more like, I don't want to say primitive, but like a earlier engine, I guess, a simpler engine.
Yeah, it's their earlier game.
Yeah, so Genshin has like more opportunities for like doable cutscenes that maybe Honkai did. I mean, Honkai Impact still has like the best cutscenes of any Hoyo game.
Yeah.
So that's because they're like straight up anime shorts.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of like character, just like in-game cutscenes in Genshin where it's like the character models walking around and talking to each other. So
I do want to say that my favorite part about the manga is you guys had said how much they fit into the 16 chapters. And I don't know about you guys, but it probably not because I'm the only fool who reads this thing over and over. But every time I read it, as we are diving deeper into Teyvat, I am finding something new and connecting a new piece. So there's a lot of, especially in Sumeru, there's a lot of connections. And that's partially because of Collei, Sino, Dottore, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really excited to finally get to talk about it.
Yes. I mean, the fact that with Fontaine, we now have a stronger sense of dragons and like pre-human Teyvat history, but also Ursa the Drake now becomes more important, at least in my eyes, for the overarching storyline in the manga and in the game.
Well, let me quickly just do I'm going to do a very quick recap on what happens in the prologue and what happens in the main area of the manga. That way, as we start talking about things like Ursa the Drake, Krapus. So a quick recap on the prologue. The prologue is 2 chapters long.
Part 1 and Part 2, Songs of the Wind.
And basically, it brings us to meet Vanessa, who we all know is a Murata. So she's from Natlan, so I can only imagine what else we're going to be tying into the manga in the upcoming months.
Yeah, and not to keep bringing up Honkai Impact.
Wow.
Yeah.
But, and I've mentioned this before, but Vanessa in the manga looks a lot like Himiko from Honkai Impact 3rd
Yes.
and Star Rail, and them calling her people the Murata or Muratan. The last name of Himiko in Honkai Impact is Murata. So that was like definitely an intentional connection. So yeah, I mean, there's a part in Honkai Impact where Himiko falls basically through the abyss and we never know fully what happens to her. So maybe she just fell to Teyvat.
That's my hope. And then eventually founded the Astral Express and left.
I feel like I'm being like punished.
Listen, it wouldn't be a Tales of Teyvat finale without bringing up Honkai.
That is,
Yeah.
Very, very true.
So in the prologue, we meet Vanessa, we meet some other characters that she is either related to or friendly with. And we basically see Venti wake up for the first time, we think, since his Durin Dvalin fight. And he's checking out Mondstadt's new, it's different. And this is when the Lawrence clan is in their heyday, aka they are torturing people. And Vanessa and Venti become friends in it. There's a whole thing where Vanessa she's already enslaved, but she's forced to then fight Ursa the Drake, which is crazy because Ursa the Drake's been around for quite a while.
And he's a dragon.
Yeah, she's like wearing a ball and chain, literally, and shackles.
Which, like, holy fuck, guys, on the nose.
Yeah, but her whole thing is the Lawrence clan buys her and her whole clan because she basically stands up to the prince of the Lawrence clan, essentially. And her contract as a gladiator forced to fight in an arena is that she has to win 12 battles. And if she does, they'll let her people go. But then their final battle ends up being with Ursa the Drake. And not only is Vanessa having to fight, they make the whole clan fight. And they're basically, we find out that Lord Lawrence Sr. made a deal with Ursa to offer them up as a sacrifice, as like a peace offering to like leave Mondstadt alone so they can keep going. And that's when Venti intervenes. And
Slutty Venti, specifically.
exactly. Yes. Thank you.
And little did Ursa know that Slutty Venti was going to come and save the fucking day. I didn't know that was going to happen.
Should we tell people why we call him Slutty Venti?
Oh, yeah. So you can check out the website. We're going to be putting a bunch of screenshots of some of the things that we talk about here, so you don't have to go scouring the manga looking for all of it. Not all of it will be there, of course, but Slutty Venti will 100% be there. So if you go to the website, you can check it out. If you check out the manga, you can do that too. I'm sure if you Googled Slutty Venti, it would come up. But Venti is in the bootiest of booty shorts, Like, he's taking me back to like 2000 when everyone wore those softy shorts and they'd like roll them up like 6 times to make them shorter.
You mean with juicy on the ass?
Yeah, sometimes, but I'm thinking more the softy ones that said like softy on the waistband.
Yeah, like the velour ones.
No. These are like just regular material, kind of like a bike short, except we rolled them up so far that they were low rise underwear, basically.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
And so he's got that on, and then he's got like this crop top that's got like the biggest boob cut ever. Like, you think that, so like Kave's got a big boob cut. You should see Venti's boob cut.
It's truly the most androgynous thing I've ever seen in this whole game. And that says a lot.
Venti has these beautiful white feathered wings that look like angel wings, and he has these like glowing tattoos, which is where the theory comes from that like Zhongli must have like glowing yellow on his arms, and that's why he hides his arms. You know, there's all these headcanons of things like that. Venti started that trend because Slutty Venti came out and was like, look at all my tats, look at my magical powers, and he comes out playing a lyre. Is there anything sluttier than that?
A guitar. If he was on like a Spanish guitar, that's fuckboy energy.
Imagine he came out with a trumpet. Oh shit!
He's just like, you like jazz?
No.
This is the holy lyre, though, that we have to go, that we break, right?
Yeah, the holy lyre. Which is like so fun because it's one of like those first little Easter eggs from the manga, right? That you can relate straight back to the game. We find out that Venti helps Vanessa, and then Vanessa actually takes over Mondstadt and founds the Knights and everything like that. And what's really cool about all that is when Venti's story teaser comes out, I don't know if it's his miscellany or his like character teaser video, but you see Vanessa in it. And it's a really great tie-in because if you didn't read the manga, you wouldn't know who the fuck that is.
One of the other really cool things about the manga is that it came out in 2018, and it's giving us little peeks into Sumeru and Natlan. I mean, specifically in the prologue, we get a lot of Natlan lore. Venti is talking to Vanessa and he's like, oh, you're clearly Muraton. And Vanessa's like, I've never heard of that before. And so he explains to her that they're a strong and proud people who dwell on the volcanic slopes of the west. The children of Murata, the Lady of Fire, are a hardy people blessed with a head of fiery red hair, but they are few in number and seldom seen in the north. She's also a lady of war. Back in those days, warriors from every tribe would perform rites of combat and celebrate victories in her name. Come to think of it, she can be pretty obnoxious at times.
Now they're just going to race cars.
Vanessa is like, well, for as long as I can remember, my people have spent generations wandering the seas of grass, which I think elsewhere in the lore, it says that she and her sister Lind are from the southern plains. So that's an interesting tidbit pre-Natlan, is that they seem to have been displaced from the volcanic islands.
And it's also curious because it's a good mirroring of Collei's story that we find out in the main manga storyline, which we do find out that she's also been exiled and she has been wandering, I think what she calls the Badlands.
The barren wastes.
Yeah. Close enough. The barren
Basically
wastes.
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, the Badlands are like in like Africa, right? Like that's a Lion King like thing.
No. Okay. Yes. Well,
it's in Lion King,
There's
right?
some in South Dakota.
Yes, it's in South Dakota.
Is that where the Lion King takes place?
Yes.
Absolutely.
The circle
of life.
Like absolutely nothing, because there's nothing in South Dakota.
The circle of Dakota.
They just take the little baby Simba to like the nose of one of the founding fathers on like the Mount Rushmore. I know that's North Dakota, but it's close enough.
It's just like nothing, like all the animals are replaced with buffalo.
But yeah, that's basically the gist of like the prologue of the manga. Keeping it short, we'll go into some more details about things that we find interesting after we do these quick synopsises. I think this will just be a nice like little guiding help. So then we enter the main storyline of the manga, where we get introduced to my boys, Diluc and Kaya, We get a look at Seamus Peg. We really have no idea what's going on, though. There's some sort of ball going on. We meet this kid named Scullion, who is assumed to be a waiter. It must be a title and not his name.
Scullion is like low down on the totem pole of servers.
Yeah. And he's new to Mondstadt, so he's a good character to kind of see intro to the manga through his lens, because a maid is telling him about Lord Diluc and how he's throwing this party and how it's his manor. And then we get to see Kaya. And while we're at this manga, Dottore shows up with his bitch Krupp, and they call a meeting of the minds. And it's Seamus Peg, who is Barbara and Jean's dad. It's Kaya, Diluc. Now remember, this is a Kaya and Diluc who supposedly hate each other at this point. Kaya has an eye patch. And we also have Krupp and we have Dottore. Basically, Dottore's like, give us your children. And Kaya's like, no. That's all you need to know, really, is that is the conversation. It's a little sus. Later on, after this meeting ends, Diluc, Krupp, and Dottore have a little interaction in the wine cellar where Diluc is the Dark Knight hero. So if you've ever heard Donna talking about how she's in love with Diluc and the Dark Knight hero, joke's on her. She's pulling an Adrian Agreste on herself.
And if she knew that he wore the dumbest mask ever, she wouldn't have the heart on for him.
But she would, because she likes the Dark Knight hero.
This is like the origin of whatever spell Mondstadt is under, where someone can just wear an eye mask and no one can tell who they are.
It is. It's very...
Remember when the Traveler did it? The Traveler put on a Fatui mask and no one knew who we were?
Yeah, it's just like that.
Yeah. It's when you look at like Clark Kent and you go, you don't know that that's Superman?
Exactly.
Oh my God, Clark Kent is Superman?
Let's also not forget that, like, yeah, he's kind of like Batman, but his goddamn mask looks like an owl.
Yeah,
He's
Owlman.
Man, I know, but it's so ridiculous because he's the only person around with long, luscious red locks
That we know of.
Exactly.
and everyone's just like, who's that? It's like, really? You can't tell?
You have to ask.
Don't get me started. I watched this show called Miraculous Ladybug, and the superheroes in it literally look exactly the same, but with masks on, and it's like a love square. So like she likes him in human form, but as a superhero, he likes her, and eventually something happens and they get together, but they don't know that's each other. She's like the only character with blue hair and pigtails in the whole fucking show. And she doesn't
So
change the fact
annoying.
that she has blue hair and pigtails. Like, it's ridiculous.
Like, I get it that it's like a storytelling device where that's like they need the audience to know who it is, but it's like, come on, you gotta try a little harder than that.
Yeah, like just like a little harder, like kick ass.
I just think Mondstadt has a spell. Like, I think Dottore put a spell on everyone in Mondstadt where he can just wear a little tiny mask and no one really knows who he is. And so it works on Diluc and Traveler too.
Well, they know they know Dottore. Well, I shouldn't say that because he's a segment and he clearly looks much different than the Dottore we meet in game, which is crazy. Here's another character we meet in game, years down the line. But anyway, so Diluc, Krupp, and Dottore have like a little incident where Dottore ends up killing Krupp with a giant safety pin or a giant thumbtack.
Yeah. And then Diluc dumps his body.
Yeah, it's lots of questions. Just in the dumpster out back. That's what Adeline's doing. That's why the other maids think that she's a killer or a cannibal. Return to the party. The next day, Dottore has called all of the Fatui to leave Mondstadt. Kaya is begrudgingly escorting, I should say, a carriage of Fatui diplomats out of the city when Collei happens to walk in, and Collei is an angry little girl, not the cheerful, happy girl that we know.
Yeah, she ain't shy here. Mm-mm.
She is like a mummy, she's wrapped up in all these bandages. She's got a cape on. She has no shirt on. I just really need to make sure that you guys know
She's
that.
very sick. Yeah, she just has a cape over her bandaged body.
Yes, it's very like unsettling. And she's used to being turned away, and the guards are trying to turn her away, and she gets mad, and she summons a purple snake made of magical aura.
Now, do you think that this was intentional or accidental?
Accidental.
Yeah.
Because she's so angry that it's hard to tell like
Yeah.
if she gave into temptation and was like, fuck these people, or if it was just like,
Yeah, because I mean, like, she really wants to get in there to like find some shit out. So I don't think her conscious first move would be to blow people up.
Yeah, I think based on the second time we see this snake summoned later on, that it shows that she just had no control over it. I mean, she seems to be the type of person, even, we definitely start to see the Collei that we know in game as we get to know Collei more in the manga and as she's interacting more with Amber and even Kaya. So I do think that, the Collei we know in game has always been there and that she just couldn't control her powers. But Collei summons the snake, everyone in Mondstadt flips the fuck out, the carriage lights on fire, and the two Fatui diplomats inside the carriage are killed.
They're crispy.
and it's like this weird black streaky energy that comes out of her hands and feet. And then that turns into a fire that attaches itself to this carriage that these Fatui diplomats are in. And then it sort of takes this form of a giant, creepy, blackish, purplish snake.
Yeah, like she summoned the demon from the depths, basically. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, and it kills them. And this is what we're going to refer to as the Blackfire incident.
So the two Fatui diplomats die. And so basically most of this manga, and we'll get into details later about certain things, is Amber, Kaya, Jean, and Lisa trying to figure out what happened because the Fatui are on Mondstadt's ass about it. The subplot of that is Amber and Collei becoming friends and Collei looking for a magical staff, which she never finds the staff, but she finds some paperwork on the staff.
Wait, she's looking for a staff?
So actually, at one point, the carriage fire, there was a lot of paperwork in it, and a lot of it burned, but they still have some of it. And Collei steals a burnt piece of paper from Lisa after hanging out with her in the library. And she says, this drawing should be that thing.
Maybe I was looking at it wrong, but I thought that the symbol or the drawing that she was looking at, I thought that was the vial syringe thingy that injected her.
It totally could be. I'm not sure. When I saw it, I immediately thought, and Al, you'll appreciate this, I thought of the staff that Jockin holds in Inuyasha, but it totally could be the vial because I think they show a picture of her being experimented on.
Yes.
Yeah, they show the vial later, much later, like near the end where she's like having a flashback of her actually getting injected.
Then it totally could be the vial. But either way, she's looking for something.
Mm-hmm.
And she has stolen this paperwork because of it. She does end up giving it back and playing dumb because she kind of gets in a situation where she feels caught. But there's a lot of learning about Collei, learning her past about being experimented on. I know we've done an episode on Collei, so we won't go too far into it. We just did an episode on Amber and her experience in the manga as well.
Yeah, we've talked about the Lawrence clan and Vanessa, so we have episodes on all of that.
And Lisa and Sino.
Yeah, if you're having deja vu, it's for a reason.
Yeah. Well, that's like the thing, though, about the manga is that it is just so all-encompassing unintentionally. Intentionally, probably, but unintentionally in my heart.
Right.
So one of the subplots of the manga, besides trying to figure out what happened to these diplomats, is rescuing Collei, and they call Sino in. Lisa writes a letter out to him, says she knows someone in the academia that can help, and Sino comes and he does a sealing ceremony to lock the black fire magic within Collei. We learn that she was experimented on with Archon residue, which is no bueno. And then another subplot is learning about the death of Krapis, Diluc and Kaya's father, or Diluc's father, Kaya's adopted father, whatever you want to say.
I was going to say, because when reading the manga, well, now that I can say that, well, I read the manga, I was like, these bitches don't like each other. And he constantly refers to it as Diluc's father. Like, he doesn't seem very fatherly.
Yeah, I think at one point he's sort of tauntingly calling himself your brother, like to Diluc, like, well, your brother thinks, like, referring to himself in the third person almost. And then at one point Diluc's even like, you're not my brother, like, you're not my bro.
Let's also remember, though, that quick recap on the trauma of these boys. When Krapis died, Kaya had like a bit of a breakdown and told Diluc that he was from Conria and that he was sent as a spy.
No, I get it. now that their dynamic is now. It's funny because I remember after I read the manga, remember how sus I used to be of Kaya? I was like, this guy's sus. I think he might be evil. He's gonna.
As you should think of most fuckboys.
Because he really is very sus in that.
Yeah, right. Because this was before I even read any of Kaya's other lore. I read the manga and I was like, this guy's sus and he's going to totally betray us. And then I found out, he's from Conria and I was extra sus.
Well, it's so funny though, because in the manga, you don't find out like that he's from Conria or anything,
Right. It was just like this big, like, starting point where I was like, I'm suspicious of this person. And so everything I found out, basically up until that Diluc event, I forget the name of it, but when you find out that they basically are a lot closer than they let on.
Yeah. And I think you even see that in the manga. The fact that Kaya and Diluc sat together through a meeting in the very beginning with Seamus and Dottore and Krupp, I think shows that they're willing to work together. Because, let's be honest, if Seamus was there, Kaya didn't have to be in that meeting. And at this point in the manga, just so everyone knows, Diluc is not in the Knights at this point. He had abandoned the Knights, he gave up his vision, and he's only using his father's delusion at this point, which he does not have his vision. At the end of the manga, Kaya gives him an ugly-ass vase that you can still find in the Dawn Winery, and it has his vision in it. But one of my favorite things about the manga, though, is the Kaya-Diluc relationship, because Kaya and Diluc actually work together to help rescue Collei and help save her from this black fire within. And they use Diluc as a distraction because his delusion gives off the same black fire magic. A little different because it has chains, which I got questions about what creep this was into. But it's the same idea. It still has, like Brandon said, those black and purple, like wispy vibes to the magic.
It smells like mist grass, apparently, when you use it.
That's in the paperwork that they find. And in the paperwork, they actually find information about this delusion as well. It's called the Evil Eye. And there was a lot of information about it. Apparently, even Barnabas, who is another lackey of Dottore, recognizes it when he sees it on Diluc as the Dark Knight. So they basically peg Diluc as the person who did the fire and killed the people in the carriage fire and not Collei.
Do they Seamus peg him?
Oh my god.
Thanks, Sino. Thanks.
Wow, was that even a sign?
You made it to the end of the season.
Did he Seamus peg him? Wow.
The answer is he should have.
Oh my god. Anyway, so Diluc gets arrested by the Knights, and Kai is the one who's like, it's him. He's the one who caused the fire. So the Knights and the Fatui work together to arrest him.
Diluc started the fire.
It was always burning because he's such an emo.
So Diluc gets arrested, and he actually gets sent back to Snezhnaya, as a prisoner. And he breaks out. And when he breaks out, he leaves behind his delusion and his mask.
I found that surprising that he left the delusion there.
Not the mask.
First of all, I don't understand why. Yeah, not the mask, because no one needs the owl boy mask. But first of all, I have two questions, really. One is why did the delusion backfire on Krapus, but Diluc was able to use it just fine? And then second of all, why would you leave that as extra ammo for the Fatui? I know now that they have a delusion factory at one point. So what's, it's like a drop in the ocean, but it just seems surprising.
I think the reason why he leaves behind the delusion is because he's ready to part ways with it. He's seen the destruction that has caused his father. He's seen the destruction it has caused Collei and for Mondstadt. And I think he has this realization that it is not a good thing to have. But I think the reason that the delusion backfires on Krapus is we don't know how long he had been using it, so he could have been older. And you kind of think of Tepe, how Tepe aged really quickly from using the delusion. It's possible that he was creaky bones.
Do you think that people with visions can more easily use delusions?
That was my second point. And despite the fact that Diluc did not have his vision on him when he was using the delusion.
Oh, true. Yeah.
If Kaya had it, it was in Mondstadt. So it's not like it was far.
Right.
But also, I mean, they're pegged worthy for a reason. It's possible that you just get that extra, like, elemental power to help you out, too. I don't know for certain. But back to Crapus, too, I really found this interesting because I took me a lot of reads to figure this one out. I can't remember when Diluc got his vision, but it must have been shortly before his 18th birthday, which we...
Oh, no. That's in the manga, I believe. I think Kaya talks about how he got his vision at 10, age 10. And because then he became a knight, I think, at 14.
Okay.
Or maybe he was already a captain at 14.
Well, we all know that Diluc originally was the cavalry cap, and we see horses in the manga. So he had a real job.
Oh, yeah. I forgot
The first
about the
and
horses.
only fucking time.
Well, Crapus holds the delusion in his hand in the carriage, and he says, I guess I won't be needing to, like, give this to you or something like that. So it makes it sound like if Diluc hadn't gotten a vision, Crapus planned on gifting it to Diluc, which is interesting because we see delusions as such evil, nasty things.
So, yeah, that was a very odd moment where he's like, I guess I won't need this anymore. Yeah, I had a hard time because I saw that line where Kai's like, he got his vision at age 10 and he hadn't quit the Knights yet. So he had a vision.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, his delusion is like in this, it looks like a gift box. So yeah, I didn't understand that really.
I thought for a moment that maybe he was going to give it to Kaya instead. They were going home to celebrate Diluc's birthday. Like, that was where they were going. Like, they left Angel Share to go to the winery. My assumption would be that Kaya was home and waiting for them. Because we do see Kaya eventually, when Crapus dies, he shows up with a bunch of knights. But he could have been called into action. He could have suspected something was wrong. We don't know. But I wonder if it was wrapped up nice because he was going to give it to Kaya. And, you know, Kaya doesn't get a vision until later that night when Diluc tries to kill him. So it's totally possible that Crapus was trying to, you know, make his other son just as loved and powerful.
Maybe he just likes to keep his things a nice thing.
I mean, he was bougie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at that winery, man.
I mean, wine is bougie anyways. You gotta live the part, right?
One of my favorite things, too, that takes place in that relates back to the winery that happens in the manga is that we get to see a young Elzer, which, like, that man aged a lot in, like, the course of the 6 months to a year when the game takes place.
Yeah, he does look a lot younger in the manga.
Did he happen to have accidentally used...
Oh, he used the delusion.
He used the delusion.
Oh, no.
He was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, he was polishing it and he was polishing it every fucking day, had no idea what he was doing. And then he woke up in the mirror and Benjamin buttoned himself.
Oh my God, stop. Poor Elzer. For those who don't know, Elzer is an NPC. He works in the Dawn Winery, and he totally knows what the fuck Diluc is up to, just like Adeline. I like to headcanon that Elzer and Adeline are together as well, so keep that in mind. But Elzer was, like, very, very good friends with Crapus, so I thought it was fun to get to see, like, a spriteful Elzer working and helping Diluc during the ball.
Before he tepe'd himself.
Yes.
Oh, Tepe.
Too soon.
It's always going to be too soon.
I know.
There's never going to be a, like, soon enough. I also, while I'm talking about the beginning of the game, I mentioned Scullion earlier, and he is this little redheaded boy who's running around as, like, a low man on the totem pole waiter.
It's not his name. It's, like, something this bitchy waitress is calling him. Scullion, get over here.
And so we get to see Scullion twice in the manga. We see him first at the ball doing his job, and we actually see him later at the celebration of the Ludi Harpatsum. And that is the moment when the woman at the ball is standing on top of the Venti statue, and he's, like, super impressed that this woman is, like, safe because of the powers of Animo, and we can see Jean, like, you know, mumbling something to herself about keeping this girl safe while using Animo. And I think that there's got to be something about this guy, and I have decided that he's Child's older brother.
Is he in the game at all?
Scullion? No, which I also got questions about.
He shows up twice in the manga. That's it?
That's it. We never see him again. He's not.
I like
at
how you're
the-
like, oh, then he's definitely the brother. He's got to be this integral part.
He has to be somehow tied to child, clearly.
So it's that. My other thought was that he could have been Toma, but that doesn't match Toma's timeline. And I think they would have just named him if it was Toma. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's Child's older brother because we know that Child has, well, I think 2 older brothers. And this guy is specifically new to Mondstadt. He doesn't know anything about Ursa the Drake. So the maid is telling him how, like, Mondstadt is indebted to Dottore because he killed Ursa. But we know that Child's father is an adventurer. So it's totally possible that this brother turned of age and moved on to adventure like his father told him.
I mean, it's also possible that it's like Barbara's older brother that we don't know about.
No, he's a redhead.
So you don't know how genetics work.
Seamus, Jean, and Barbara are all blonde.
What is what's her face?
Frederica, she's a
Yeah.
bitch.
I know what she
Maybe
is.
he's Rosaria's brother.
Ooh.
Oh,
He doesn't look like he bathed in the gray stuff.
I mean,
Well, maybe she got kidnapped and sold into slavery, or sold, kidnapped by bandits,
But
whatever.
still, they would still have, they would look alike.
I'm just saying he could be anyone.
No.
You're like, no, Child's brother.
Child's brother. But yeah, I'm super interested to see if we meet this Scullion at any point. I also am, like, really disappointed because we never get a ball in Mondstadt like we see in the manga, which in my opinion is disappointing.
never say never. You never know.
You mean like a fancy shindig?
Yeah,
type of
yeah,
ball?
not like a bouncy ball.
I was like, are you talking about the Harpastum ball?
No, like a gala.
Right.
Like, where's my Met Gala,
You want a
Mondstadt?
debutante. You want a full Bridgerton moment.
Yeah, and I feel like now that Chiori's around, like, she could design all the fits for it. It'd be great.
Genshin, this is now officially the time where you give us everything we fucking wanted in outfits. Like, we already have so many beautiful outfits from the manga. Just add it. God damn it.
Oh, you want to talk about the fashion of the manga?
Wait, can we finish
Yeah.
the story recap? Are we done with your Diluc Kaya derailment?
No, not never. I mean, that's really it.
Well, there's the whole Barnabas part too.
Okay, you talk about Barnabas. I don't like him.
So if you'll recall from our Collei episode, she was experimented on as a child at that creepy hospital in Sumeru, and she was given to a seer in her village or from wherever she's from because there was something wrong with her. I guess she was sickly.
And do we think the seer was Barnabas? Because it kind of looked like him, but it was a
Yeah.
shadow.
I think so.
Probably, but I wasn't 100% sure of
Okay.
that. But I know shortly after she was given over as like a baby or whatever, they started experimenting on her. And then like her mom would come back and try to get her and they'd be like, no, you have to leave, go away. We're still trying to heal her, like just send her away. And so she basically gets kidnapped and orphaned. Orphan alert. But Barnabas is so creepy. And
Mhm.
he now works for Dottore, but he comes back to Mondstadt because Dottore, like the Fatui, are technically invited to the Ludi Harpastum for political reasons. And Dottore's like, I'm bored with that. You can go. And then he goes there and he sees Collei and realizes who she is. And he's like, ooh, this will be something great to bring back to Dottore because, the Fatui are like killing all these children at the arena in Snezhnaya. He says all this crazy shit to Collei when she's trying to resist him to like get her to go Dark Phoenix.
Mhm.
So he mentions after being favored by our god so much, she's sort of like calling her insolent, And I was like, what does that mean? Is they the Fatui? Like, do the Fatui worship a god? Does he and Dottore worship a god? Does he belong to some other faction we don't know about? Who is this god that favors Collei and allowed her to survive the Archon residue injection? And then later, when they're having their big showdown with Amber, it's like Collei, like Sino seals the creepy black serpent within Collei's body, which creates a mark on her neck. And then Amber's trying to protect her from Barnabas, who wants to steal her and take her back. And Amber defeats him, but then he turns into this giant, like, manticore, I guess, thing, like beast.
Mhm.
like lion with like horns. And I wasn't sure. I was like, is that supposed to be a chimera, a manticore? Like,
I think it's a chimera because a manticore has snakes as tails.
yeah, I wasn't sure.
Can we also just say for 1 second, like, what the fuck, Sino? Like, he didn't help at all. Like, he just was like, I'm done, bye. And then they got attacked. Like, Sino, you're the fucking General Mahamatra.
Maybe it took a lot out of him.
Yeah.
You know, like perform a whole ritual and shit.
I'm sorry, he could have helped.
Maybe he was too busy putting on his shorts.
Oh my God.
He was rolling them up so that Juicy could read on his ass. Velour, velvety pink, rolled up booty shorts. And in fact, instead of velour, it says Tignari's property.
They weren't dating yet.
It was just weird because I didn't understand what caused that. Was that supposed to be like a black fire beast, like this, like Collei snake? Because in some of the panels, it looked sort of like black fiery, like black and purple, like the snake. And then in other panels, it did not. It looked brown, like it was like giant lion body. And so I was confused, like, how did he turn into that? Who is this god that they're worshiping? And who is they that are worshiping this god? Like, there was a lot of unanswered questions about that are still unanswered.
I have a big theory on this, and it goes back to our Collei episode with Elazar and the treatment she got from Dottore and the experiments, because all of them were injected with god remains. So it's likely that, like, these projections, this chimera, this snake, are probably remnants of dead gods.
Yeah, I definitely think that Barnabas was experimented on and survived.
Yes.
So do you think that the creature that the black fire manifests as is tied into just whatever residue they were injected with? Or do they have multiple ones inside them?
I think it's multiple, because if you think, and this kind of goes with, I can't remember if it was cutscene or something that Zhao said, but when he was, you know, fighting the corruption of like the god remains and he'd have to consume it, I think there were multiple different creatures at once.
There is some evidence for it, because at one point when Kaya attacks Collei to like threaten her enough to get the snake to show itself, it shows what's happening from Collei's perspective. And she's basically like hallucinating and like hearing a voice from inside her. And at one point, the voice is like, unleash us, unleash us. And using the word us was really interesting, because I was like, is the god inside her talking about itself plus Collei, or are there multiple gods inside her? You know what I mean?
With Collei specifically, and I think I've talked about this theory before, so if I did, travelers and y'all, I apologize. But I definitely think it's possible that there's more than one god, but I think it's clear that this snake is like in charge of Collei, whatever that means. And I feel like Collei was experimented on using the Archon residue god remains of Urabashi, because when we did our Urabashi episode, it all ties in this season, we learned that, you know, he died on the surface, not in Enkanomiya. We learned that his body, like his will is everywhere around his body, and that they have to put up these wards to keep it away. We know that the Fatui is trying to break into the furnace, that they're knocking down the wards, they're releasing this residue. We also know that Dottore was in Inazuma, in this area, many moons ago, fucking around with Scaramouche's life. So it's totally possible that back then Dottore took some residue from Urabashi and brought it home with him. On top of that, we know that Choji's village, that the guy in charge, the village leader, literally is seeing and hearing things. And at one point when Collei first is walking into Mondstadt, she looks up at the giant Venti statue, and it is surrounded in vines and the black, like, fire residue, but it's a vision.
I thought those were snakes.
They could be snakes. Yeah, absolutely. They're either snakes or like the remnants of this power. So she's having similar side effects.
She also has a vision of drowning, which, I mean, I took that as just to show like her mental state, where she's just drowning by this presence within her, like it's just pulling her under. But it was interesting because it's like it shows her in the water, and then you see these black like tentacles coming up and grabbing her. So that made me think, of course, of like Osile or other beasts like that. But I do think that's a really good theory, is that it's the remains of Orobashi, or if the Tatarigami god, whatever that is something else, then it could be that. I mean, we're kind of assuming that the remains of Orobashi are like turned into that, whatever that creature is that created the Tatarigami curse, right?
Right. But yeah, continue, Brennan. Sorry. So many sidetracks.
No, that was really it. I just think that it was really interesting. I mean, also, Barnabas looks like he has like pointy ears and claws on his hands. Like, he doesn't look like a normal human.
Yeah, he's creepy.
I was curious if Barnabas is the same species as the rooster.
Monopoly Man?
Yeah, Monopoly Man, Igor from Persona 5. Yeah, whatever you want to call him. You know, this is the harbinger that's good friends, quote unquote, with Child. I wonder if they're like the same species, and if that is like a species we're going to see in Snezhnaya.
Right.
Or if the experimentation did him dirty.
I kind of hope it's that, not that there's a whole lot of these creepy dudes running around.
But Sophini, you think he was experimented on by the Fatui and then joined the Fatui and started, like, kept the cycle going, the cycle of abuse?
Well, I also think it's possible that he was already in the Fatui and that he volunteered as tribute.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Because I could see some very devoted Fatui members being like, I'll do it. Anything for the Harbingers, you know, anything for the Saritsa.
Yeah.
At least, you know, that's my headcanon, because that's what I write about in my fanfic too. So.
Well, I also just wanted to say, do you remember when, and I could have misinterpreted something when I was rereading this, but at one point Collei was like hanging out with Jean and Lisa, and I think she fell asleep. And they were just like, let's let her sleep. And they're like reviewing all the documents from the carriage that went up in flames. Jean's vision is sitting on a table and it starts reacting. And then later on at the end, when Amber and Collei are having the big showdown with Barnabas, like, Amber apparently can create a shield of fire. First of all,
where?
Yeah.
And so Collei, she basically puts Collei in a little fire bubble shield and is like battling Barnabas in his Manticore Chimera form, and is like not actually doing any damage to him, basically. And then Collei breaks out of the shield and hugs Amber when they has sort of this like emotional epiphany thing. And then Amber's vision starts reacting and like glowing extra bright. And then she suddenly is able to hurt Barnabas, but this is also happening at the same time that this crazy seal thing appears above Barnabas, and like chains come down, and you realize that Diluc is nearby and he's using the delusion.
Do you want to know what my crack theory is about that? It's gonna sound really silly. So I have two crack theories for that. One is that at this point we know that Collei has Elazar, and that's like the original reason like her parents like gave her to the Fatui anyway. So there's a part of me that's like, we all know that Elazar is because of forbidden knowledge, it's because of Deshret. So, and my thought is this like remain of Deshret a god reacting with the vision to give it more powers? My second thought is that Collei's been experimented on with god remains. We don't know who those gods are. And while the power seems to be manifesting in an evil way, it could have been a good god, right? Like, we kind of learned that from Zhao, that even though there's a lot of bad juju going around because of these gods, that it's really like their ill will is left behind, but they could have been good. So what if the god that Collei's been experimented on is reacting and giving them the extra power too? Almost like they're crying for help.
I mean, I could understand that.
We know that the delusions and the black fire, like, I think the delusions use the black fire. So I think that the god remains are in the delusions because they produce the same smell, which
definitely.
is mistgrass. And I also just wanted to point out that, like, we see when they show us that, like, Dottore is the one who finally kills Ursa the Drake, and there's this whole subplot in the manga of these mechanical birds that look a lot like the mechanical beetles in Fontaine. And those are basically used to control Ursa in the manga, right? So that brings up a whole lot of questions about what Ursa is and why are they able to use whatever Dottore's technology is that we know, you know, the mecha Krupp thing that he creates, the robot version of Krupp, is like attracted to and is controlled by. Like the same thing that's controlling this like spirit of Krupp that is put into a robot by Dottore is also able to control Ursa the Drake.
But do you know what that makes me think of?
What? Godzilla?
Makes me think of gold.
Oh.
You think, like you just said, Ursa the Drake, first off, gives abyssal vibes. Let's not lie.
Yes. Because it's kind of purplish.
Yeah. And is controlled by a beetle. And we know that some kid with purple hair unleashed a beetle onto Krapus's carriage, and that's what, called Ursa to kill Krapus.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know that the same beetle was used to call Krupp, but also a spirit being put into a mechanical being, gives me Lillipar vibes, but also gives me gold vibes.
Totally, yeah.
Well, did Gold do anything with mechanical stuff, or was she always taking like biological stuff and putting it together?
So Gold definitely seems to have stayed more biological, depending on your vibes about the Rift Towns, like I think there could be an argument that the Rift Towns are mechanical.
Okay.
She was using alchemy, whereas Lillipar was using technology, her and her kids, which ties heavily into Deshret.
But it also ties into Dottore's background as a Sumeru scholar, who wasn't he obsessed with Conria technology? And we know that Lillipar basically created a ruin guard that Conria later used.
The ruin golems, yeah.
Yes, the ruin golems. So if Dottore became buds with Gold, they could be working together. And it could be, we don't know still to this day what the Heart of Nefarious is, the artifact that she found that made her like yeet her son to Alice and run away.
What if Gold is just a version of Dottore?
No, she's too old.
Okay, but the other way around.
I don't know.
What if Gold made Dottore?
It's possible, but he seems to have from my understanding, Albedo is the only successful humanoid that Gold has made. But I don't know what's under that mask.
Yeah.
True.
Oh, so many theories.
I think it's interesting that we know that Gold was in Conria at the same time as Piero. They could be buds.
There's definitely something like Conrian going on, it seems like. I don't know if it's the Fatui, but at least Dottore is like playing with Conrian tech.
Well, the fun part about Dottore is that he's playing God.
The fun part?
Yeah, the fun part.
What I mean by what's fun about it is that he's obsessed with Conria stuff. He works under Piero, who is from Conria, a place that was godless.
Yeah.
So why is Dottore so obsessed with playing God when he's really interested in godless things? It's just like a weird little juxtaposition of his values.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I don't think it's a juxtaposition. I think he admired Conria to not be ruled by gods and therefore become godlike themselves. They create their own destiny. They don't need to rely on gods to help them out.
But that's the thing, is that all failed, and he knows that because he's friends with Piero.
Yeah, but Dottore is like, I'm gonna do it right.
His ego.
Yeah, but that makes me think like he doesn't like Connor. Like he wants to be a god. Like he doesn't want people to live on their own and be their own gods. He wants to rule them.
And he tries to make a god.
He failed.
I always took it as he was just like a huge, like he just is a huge egomaniac, and it's really just about mastering technology on a level that no one else could. That's kind of how I always took it, but like it's more just about power in general for him.
Wait until he meets Cloud Retainer.
What do you mean?
Oh, just because Cloud Retainer is also like wants to be the best technology person.
Oh, like they're gonna have a tech off?
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
I don't know if her skills are up to par because she doesn't have that Conrian tech.
Not yet.
Wait, doesn't she have like a whole like domain of like Conrian bullshit from Guizhong?
Is it Conrian?
I thought it was.
I do think she has some Conrian technology, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if she necessarily understands it.
Yeah, or she's just trying to outdo it regardless, because she needs to make stuff better anyway.
But then she's like shook by the kites of Fontaine.
Yeah, and then she's very mad and she goes to make her own.
If they could just set her against Dottore, like the competitiveness that would just solve everyone's
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, she would they keep each other busy.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Shen'd be able to live her life. Ganyu wouldn't be reminded of her quote unquote chubby past. Like everyone would be able to live peacefully. Dottore would not torture children. They would just hang out in a teapot domain together.
Yeah. The one thing that I had like a little epiphany myself while I was saying that
And
before was
Tiffany.
an epiphany. It was an epiphany from Tiffany. Was that Scaramouche was a puppet twice.
Oh yeah.
He was born a puppet, and then that bitch was trying to make him a god puppet. He's destined to be a damn puppet.
No, he's destined to be free now. He's a free bird.
Somebody's gonna try and make him a puppet.
Yeah, it's gonna be Sethos.
He's, God damn it, it's the story of fucking Pinocchio.
Well, I don't know. Sethos is gonna, keep him in check. Don't worry.
I don't know about that.
I hope A tries to recruit him for whatever war is brewing, and they finally have like their moment.
But she doesn't remember him.
I want that though.
Well, I know. Well, but if she was like runs into him and is like, "Help us out," he could be like, "Excuse me."
He'd be like, "Fuck off, mom." And she's like, "What? When did I have a kid?" Okay, now I gotta bring this back.
Yeah, there's some stuff we have to circle back to for sure.
Specifically, the fashion of the manga. We are given so many looks, guys. Like so many red carpet fits. And we need to walk through all of them very quickly. My first fit that I want to bring up is Child Amber. So in the manga, we find out that when Amber was younger, she was playing hide and go seek with her grandfather, and she locked herself in a cabinet basically to hide away. And it ended up being Eroc's office, which we actually talked a little bit about in Amber's episode. And Eroc and Diluc end up having this whole argument about how they're going to cover up Krapus's death. And that's when Diluc quits the Knights. But Amber is wearing this cute little like white, I don't know, it kind of looks like a dress, but she's wearing it over top of like a long sleeve shirt, and she's got like her high socks and everything on. But it's this cute little white thing with these like little red triangle sleeves. Later on, Collei actually wears the same outfit over top of her bandages when they go to the Ludi Harpatsum festival together. And you could see that in the manga. So you get to see the same exact outfit. And Amber's like, "Oh, this used to be mine." And Collei ends up getting into a fight with Kaya, as Brandon mentioned, and she gets it all bloodied up. And we learn through, I believe, a voice line of Lisa's that Collei tried to clean and sew this outfit back together for Amber. And when she came to see Lisa, her hands were all like cut up and bandaged because she kept pricking herself. And we actually get to see Collei giving this outfit back to she gives it to Lisa, and Lisa gives it back to Amber. So I think that's a cool little fashion moment. We get to see two characters wearing it, and it comes back to game lore, which is so freaking fun. Then we get Amber's outfit. This is giving like the club.
Yeah, because the first time they show her, she's got cheeks out.
I mean, she's got the whole stomach out. She looks great.
I mean, I guess that's why she has to have like the cheeks out though, because all she does in that manga is high kick people.
Oh yeah.
She's just like, why does she need a bow? She's just gonna high kick them.
That is her bow.
She needed the bow for Barnabas at the end, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I love the Ludi Harpatsum look for Amber as well. And I think it's the first time where Amber actually looks much older than Collei. Also, in the manga at this point, they get offered beer, and Amber says that they're both underage. Now, I don't know what the drinking age is in Mondstadt, if it's 16, 18, 21. I think the assumption would be it's 16.
I think it's 18 because isn't when they show Diluc's 18th birthday party, they're like
he's
trying to get him to
drinking.
drink.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And he's
You're
like,
right.
no, I'm fine.
So I'm going to assume that Amber is like maybe 16 in the manga, and that Collei is 12. That's kind of my guess. But that's one. Then we get Amber 3.0. She gets another fucking outfit at the end of the manga where she has like this cute, like cropped short sleeve jacket, and she wears like a long sleeve black shirt underneath it. Like she looks like freaking Amelia Earhart. I think it's adorable. I love it.
With her goggles.
With the goggles, like, yeah, it's everything. Then, also just in general, we get to see all these really cute fits in the Ludi Harpatsum from NPCs. We get to see a lot of really cute fits as well at the ball that happens. we get to see Collei's mother, and she is wearing a hijab.
Mhm.
And I love that. And I'm so mad that we don't see anyone who looks like that in Sumeru.
Mhm.
It's sad that they had the foresight to do that in the manga, but not in the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, they also have like Vanessa sticking her ass in your face in the manga. Like there are so many suggestive scenes that they would never, and outfits that they would never do in the game.
Yes.
In the manga. It's much sexier.
But then at the same time, they have like a very conservative look for Collei's parents. So it's like,
Yeah,
why is there such good diversity?
I know.
And I don't get this anywhere else.
That and Kaya's like 35 shades darker than he is now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh wait, you do have that color crayon.
While we're talking about Kaya, we get a white suit Kaya.
Okay, we all knew he was going to. He's a queer icon. Did you expect anything else?
And he's showing so much cleavage in it.
So much.
He loves this cleavage.
He does. But I don't know if you guys noticed. So the white Kaya suit, while it is shown in a lot of the manga panels at one point, like in the later chapters, it is the cover of one of the last 3 chapters. But there's also a cover that has Diluc in a white jacket and kind of suit look.
I love that one.
Mhm.
Yes, me
He's
too.
having high tea.
High tea. He's got a lot of wind asters. But these 2 pictures take place in the same location,
Oh yeah, they do. I didn't even notice that before.
which I think is the back patio of the winery.
Okay.
Because I do believe there's an area of the winery that has like the kind of like pagoda, like wood panelings and everything.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, it does look like it would be there. There is a place, I think, that's in Mondstadt that looks sort of like that too, in a different panel.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember like Kaya. Oh, I think it's when like Amber's following Kaya because he's treating her like a rookie.
Yeah, which she kind of is at that point.
Yeah, totally.
As much as I love Amber. But yeah, I wanted to point out that they're in the same location. And I also just wanted to say, while we're on the topic of the Dawn Winery and like weird things over there, Diluc has a Cecilia garden somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Where the fuck is it? Like,
I know.
why can't I see this? Lisa acts like it's the best thing ever. Why don't I get to see it?
There are so many cute little details that I wish we could see. I wish they put into the game, because I'm not gonna say that like Mondstadt and Liyue, because they are like the first 2 that we meet, that their cities are kind of barren, but they are.
Yeah, I do think we've talked about this before, I think, where I do think that when you're running around the world of Teyvat, it's like supposed to be a somewhat more simplified version of what would be IRL if IRL was in game, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where it's like it only takes you so long to run from Springvale to Mondstadt, but like if you were into that, it would take a lot longer than that.
Yes.
So it's like a slightly simplified landscape. So I do think there's stuff that's missing. Because even when Vanessa is like, it shows Vanessa at her home with her sister at the beginning, she's like, let me go get you some herbs to eat because her sister's sick. And she like steps out of her house. And it shows her like probably like if you look at the angle of like you see Mondstadt like in the distance a little bit. And if you look at the angle, the house is probably like, I want to say like maybe Bright Crown Canyon. Is that the name of it?
Oh, like over by
Old Mondstadt.
Yes, Bright Crown Mountains. Yes.
So like there, or like even north of the lake or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, where are the houses? Like you can't find any houses over there. Like you can't really find houses anywhere except Springvale.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of like little like villages like we do in Liyue or Sumeru even.
Mm-hmm. So I do think there's like stuff missing from the landscape. In terms of fashion, I just want to say my favorite is Jean's bomber jacket.
Okay, Jean's bomber jacket comes right off the 2004 red carpet. Like I swear, Hilary Duff wore this exact jacket.
Why do you think I love her?
So good.
Why do you think she is my wife?
Jean has on her little like corset top, but then she's wearing low-rise white jeans with a black belt, a chunky black belt. She's got a fucking cropped bomber jacket that's rolled up above her elbows with her fucking gloves on.
These are what dreams are made
Oh
of.
my god, I know, Pablo. Like, it's such a dream come true. Like,
Let's go.
in the same scene that we get to see Bomber Jacket Jean, we also get to see Fontainian Lisa. Like, what the fuck is with Lisa's outfit?
Oh, with that hat.
With the
With
flat
the
brim.
hat.
Still a hat.
You said it was better. I thought you
It is
liked
better.
more.
It's definitely better than her
It's
normal
just
hat.
still a hat.
Yeah.
Listen, Lisa's hiding something under her hat, guys. Like, she has to wear a hat.
Is it Ratatouille?
Yes, that's where Remy lives.
Remy.
Oh my god, Remy lives in Mondstadt. He ran away from Fontaine.
I'm just imagining it's like a tiny baby Cyrus.
Oh,
Just like
Aw.
or it's the truth of the world. She takes her hat off and there's just like a little sign that says
It's forbidden knowledge. That's where the forbidden knowledge is. It's
in
under
her
Lisa's hat.
hat. No, you know what's under her hat? Her death countdown.
Yeah. It's just a doomsday clock. Like at the
Like in the Narcissus Christ.
Yes.
Okay, then we get the most iconic fashion moment in all of Genshin. We get introduced to High Pony Diluc. So, we get to see teenage Diluc, which is cool. But after Diluc escapes from Snezhnaya after being arrested with the help of Kaya, he goes and he works at the bar at Angel Share, and everyone's like, "Oh, what an honor that Diluc is here." And you look back and you just have this beautiful Diluc in like a vest with a button down and tie on, looking off in the distance with this beautiful high ponytail. The most iconic thing ever.
And then we got it in game. I remember when people were like obsessed with High Pony Diluc before the skin came out.
And then the skin came out and the crowd went wild.
Yes.
I will say the skin could improve with how high that pony can go, but I will take it.
Yeah.
But do you all have High Pony Diluc?
Of course.
Yes.
It's iconic.
I do. I use that.
Yeah, it's the only thing that he wears.
I've gone back and forth because I do use him a lot. Though I was like, well, maybe I'll invest in that one. But I tend to, while I like the High Pony, I like the rest of the outfit in his original. But maybe if it was a white suit.
The white suit is so good.
Oh, the white suit is amazing.
White and black. Yeah.
The only character skins I bought Klee's.
It's hard not to buy Glee.
I bought Shenhun's, bought Diluc. So basically, I bought all the 5 stars. There's a good amount still there.
Dilucs and jeans.
Oh, the sea breeze dandelion.
The beach one.
Yeah.
The beach one. Yeah. And then we got Barbara's for free, right?
Yeah. If you played that.
Yeah, fuck you, Brandon.
Yeah.
That outfit is so good.
Yeah, Kaya's for free.
Yeah, Kaya, Xingqiu, Lisa, Fischl, Ningguang. All the 4-star ones are free.
I like Lisa's. Kaya's is okay. I don't love Klee's or Xingqiu's.
I really like Xingqiu and Klee's, but Klee's is just so like campy that it's fun,
It's cute.
I love Ningguang's.
Ningguang's
Well,
great.
yeah.
My favorite.
Yeah, I bought Shenhuz. Shenhuz is the only one that I got. And it was all for the booty.
If I had Shenhe, I probably would have bought that.
I got Ganyu's for sure because it fixed your fucking hair.
Oh, see, I don't have Ganyu.
Imagine
Yeah,
not
me
having
neither.
every character in the game.
I don't know what that's like.
Wow.
I'm feeling very attacked. I don't know about you, Amanda, but
Well, you want to know something, Brandon? All of our characters are level 90.
there you go.
Almost all of mine are, and I have like double them. So whatever.
No, but you haven't succeeded yet. So this is our win, damn it.
I'm gonna count that shit as soon as we get off this call.
She's like, "Oh, you're on, bitch."
You remember when do you remember when someone challenged my fishing skills?
Was it me?
No, it was Melissa.
Oh.
And it
I
wasn't
know.
even in Genshin. But like
It was
I
in
think it
Fortnite.
spewed into it. It was in Fortnite. And like I was like, oh, you think? And then my fishing has That cup has runneth over.
How many are you away from that ultimate achievement?
The ultimate is 2,000, and I am slightly under 300 left.
Woo!
Oh my god.
So I figured out the math that I need to catch 14 fish a week to finish my one and only New Year's resolution that will make it to the end of the year, which is to hit 2,000 fish in Genshin. And I kept saying, I was like, I'm probably going to get one primo for it, but I don't care. Like,
I love it that you're like, this is the one New Year's resolution I can make happen.
Fishing.
Imagine putting that kind of dedication into anything IRL, but no, you're going to do it in Genshin.
Yeah, I love it.
the other ones go to bed early. Nah.
Yeah.
Drink more water. Nah.
Nah.
Eat more veggies. Nah.
Digital fish?
Yeah.
Cash fit specifically in Genshin.
I have one more fashion take that is super important. Sino.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The cape, the cloak, whatever. I love it. Where is it? Why don't I have that as a skin?
Yeah, that is quite. Oh god, so good.
You're 100% right with that one.
Yeah. They must have got rid of it when they got rid of Collei's cloak.
Yeah.
But her outfit is mad cute too when she's like leaving Mondstadt to go with Sino.
It really is.
Like she has such a cute fit too, and we don't like ever see that. We just see her like Amber impersonation outfit.
I mean, isn't that her goal in life?
I don't know. It's really cute because like I know everyone is always like, oh, like she wants to be just like Amber and blah blah blah. But I think that as she's growing up, she wants to be like her fathers, like Sino and Tignari. And like I really think like the bow using and everything, it comes from Tignari more so than Amber because he did teach her. And like she's learning botany and stuff like Tignari. Like I love that she wants to be like a little Amber and that she has her Amber-isms, but she also has her like Tignari-isms too, and they're really cute. We don't give them enough credit. But while we're on the topic of Collei, I did have one other really fun lore fact that we find out about her in the manga. Do you guys remember the abandoned hospital in the desert?
Yes.
Do you know that Collei burned that down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I love that they show that because I remember playing through that quest line and looking at those notes. I was like, is this that place?
It blew my mind away. Like you can actually like take the manga screenshot and line it up with the building and it's almost perfect, which also suggests that Collei led an uprising against the hospital.
Yeah, because she was kind of on a quest for vengeance for a while.
Well, she said in the panels that I destroyed everything I touched. I left memories of my family behind.
See, that's why part of why I thought it might have been intentional when she killed the diplomats. I was like a little like, was it on purpose? But I could see it either way. So
Could have been a little bit of both.
yeah.
Yeah, because in those same panels, she's also shown like reaching for the hospital as it burns, yelling, "Save me." In another panel from that same area, she says that they govern a beautiful world for humans to live in. The gods painted a beautiful dream for the human race, yet we're denied the gods' love. We exiles have done nothing wrong. So she felt like the gods were ignoring her, which makes sense because we know Celestia is asleep.
Yeah. Which also mirrors Vanessa a little bit.
Definitely.
Because she had the same kind of like, she's talking to Venti and she's like, when I was a girl, like my elder would tell me to pray to Celestia and then, one day I can ascend and become immortal and blah, blah, blah. But then, they were wandering the plains and starving and the gods never answered their prayers. And she's like, can you tell me something about Celestia? And then it shows Venti with this like sort of nervous look on his face.
Yeah.
And these like weird figures that are kind of obscured, but that you can tell they're wearing these like weird like cape cloak things, which made me think that they were maybe Conrians.
Maybe. I'm not sure. There's a few times where we see like weird shadowy things like people and I'm like, who are they?
Yeah.
Can we also talk about the Fatui underground arena that we learn about?
Oh my god.
That show is creepy
It's
too.
a lot.
Yeah, it's so creepy.
Here's my main gripe with the manga, right? Okay. So all this good dark shit for Mondstadt is in the manga, and yet it's nowhere in game.
Well, that's not Mondstadt lore. That's Snezhnaya lore.
I thought that was underneath Mondstadt.
No.
It's at the beginning of the first chapter, which is largely in Mondstadt, but that opening scene is happening in an
Oh.
underground arena in
I
Snezhnaya.
overlooked that. I thought it was underneath the city of Mondstadt, which is why I was so confused.
I
Right.
mean, who knows? But no, it's suggested to be in Snezhnaya.
And it's called Heresis or Heresies. Is that how you're supposed to pronounce it? Like heresy?
Yeah, it's like heresy.
Heresies, which is funny because it's like heresy. But yeah, it's like, and there's a dead.
It's a dead child. It's an orphan child who has been unalived.
Yes, his name is Anthony.
It's a child with no E.
Child without an E.
No breath either.
And his name is Anthony, and he's like dead in the center of this underground arena. And there's like, you can see all these like people sort of looking on, and he's called Contender 139. And then someone says, no life signs detected, initiating rebuild. And I'm like, rebuild? And then they show a different panel that's from farther away. And the silhouette of that kid, of Anthony, is like, it looks like has turned into a different shape.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looks like a giant hilly troll or something, but I'm not sure about that. Or it could be, I mean, based on what we see later, it could be more mechanical, like what Mecha Krupp turns into when Dottore like puts his soul in a machine. But it doesn't really look exactly like anything. Like I can't really tell what it's supposed to be. And I'm like, what are they rebuilding? And then Dottore tells Krupp that his wares, 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 are pathetic, that he's running out of bodies and ideas. He threatens to experiment on him. And then Krupp suggests getting more wares from Mondstadt. And we know that wares are children to experiment on. And he mentioned, like, it shows that Krupp is like bringing up this idea of like getting children from Mondstadt so that he doesn't get sent down into the pits to get more wares. So I'm like, do they have all these kidnapped children down in the pits, whatever those are? Or are the pits like where they have other creepy things?
Well, it also makes you wonder, like, if the pits were the original House of the Heart.
Oh,
I know. That's why I'm like, are they just collecting, like, is the House of the Hearth and Fontaine special where that's like their subterfuge assassin?
Yeah.
Like they turn them into weapons instead of fodder for experiments.
Like there's like an entry exam, and if you pass it, you get to be one of them, or else you're aware.
Yeah. I mean, we know that they were kidnapping kids in Sumeru. I mean, they did that to Collei to experiment on them there, and they actually had like a different site over there for that. So like, what exactly is in the pits in this arena in Snezhnaya?
Yeah.
And what does rebuild mean? Is that just like, is there technology? Are they using Conrian technology and like trying to create machine children?
I mean, they wouldn't be able to die so easily if they did.
But you know what's interesting too about the kid in particular that's dead is that there is another Anthony in Mondstadt, and it makes me curious why they duplicated a name. I know IRL, that happens all the time, but like, what are the odds that you have two Anthonys in this game, you know?
Yeah.
Well, they have, what's the other one? Cyrus, right? We have two Cyruses.
Yeah, two Cyruses. Actually, there's three Cyruses.
Also, Vanessa's sister is Lind, and in a later part, she calls her Linda. And I think there's a Linda too in Mondstadt, who is also sickly, I think.
Anna is Anthony's younger sister. And Anna is the one who's like sick and wants to be an adventurer. And you could do a bunch of like dailies where basically you help her become not sick anymore. And she becomes an adventurer, and it really scares Anthony. He's like, I don't know about this one. But I don't know. It's very curious that Anthony
Maybe they're brothers.
Maybe.
We know that it really pissed off Diluc because when he confronts Krupp and tries to get him to reveal what Dottore is doing, he brings Anthony up. I think he says like he worked at a bakery or something in town and was recruited by the Fatui and then never heard from again. And then you realize when you get to that part, they're like, that's the kid at the beginning, because they show a picture of him and I think he has like whitish hair or gray, and they're like, oh, that's the kid at the beginning that's dead.
But also, where is the bakery?
I know, that's what I mean. Like, that's another example of like, yeah, of course there's another Anthony because there's a whole bakery we don't even know about because they don't show us everything.
Right. I would like to know what the bakery is because it's definitely not in Mondstadt City, but it's totally, I mean,
It's near Diluc's Cecilia Garden.
yeah, where the fuck is that? Oh, it's so annoying. Also, total side note before we move into mail time, but Seamus Pegg, I think, is an alcoholic, just an FYI.
He did get pretty drunk at that party.
Yeah, after having a diplomatic meeting, he didn't think that, hey, maybe shit will get real again. He just went and got wasted.
I don't know. He also seemed like kind of like he wasn't going to be the one who's going to stop them from taking kids. So I was almost like he was, I don't know. He came off cowardly to me.
He's also a deacon.
But he also got really upset because
Yes.
you could tell that he blamed himself for what happened to Crepus and
Yeah.
for Diluc leaving the Knights. Like you can tell he felt really, he had some like deep guilt about the Fatui's kind of infiltration into Mondstadt, which I thought was interesting because I'm like, are we going to learn more? Are we going to learn something surprising about him?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Like maybe Seamus is working with the Fatui, or maybe he gave Crepus the delusion in the first place.
I wouldn't put it past him, this motherfucker.
I know, he separated his children.
I had a couple other random things to bring up. One was, I don't know if y'all noticed, first of all, when Vanessa like sort of displays her will and determination to like fight for her people or whatever, like that, it shows these weird like red kind of wisps of energy like floating into the ground, and that's when Venti reappears.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting that she definitely, it made it seem like she definitely is the reason he woke up from his post cataclysm slumber. And when he's coming up out of this like animo seal on the forest floor, the shape of it is very bird-like. It's very like falcon looking as it's emerging, and then it turns into the human form of Venti. So I thought that was really interesting, especially because we know of at least one other divine bird in this game, which is Simurgh from Sumeru. So I'm like, is that a thing, or is that, which is I think more likely, is that's just them using that like falcon motif to symbolize freedom.
Yeah.
And there's also the short story that Amber loves so much about the birds learning how to fly.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it makes sense because like when you look at the symbol for Animo, it does kind of have a wing-like shape.
Mhm.
It really just symbolizes Venti's own wings.
That were chopped off.
Slutty Venti's wing.
Nah, he just, Slutty Venti decides when he's going to show them off.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, the other big thing that we haven't really discussed, which we have to talk about, is Vanessa's ascension to Celestia.
Oh my god.
At the end of the prologue.
Yeah.
So that is such a huge lore moment because they actually show her sort of ascending, but we're not really exactly sure what we're looking at. And then it's also paired with Venti telling the story that is like overlaid on top of the images of Vanessa ascending or possibly ascending to Celestia. Like, first, let's talk about what he says, and then we'll talk about what we see. He says, in other distant worlds, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but Pongu gave his blood to form the rivers and seas. The god sacrificed Purusha and cut his body to pieces, and then fashioned all living beings with those parts. The brain of the giant Ymir became clouds, and then their sacrifices seeded life in the unliving cosmos. These songs sing of the primeval ones. So Pongu is like, that's a creation figure from Chinese mythology. Purusha is from a Hindu creation myth. Ymir is from a Norse creation myth. So I love that they're like remixing all these different cultural creation myths. But what really caught me a lot was that, first of all, he says in other distant worlds. And that makes me wonder,
He knows.
do the gods travel to other universes like Alice?
I mean, if Alice does.
Yeah, that's what I'm like, does he just know this because of Alice or the Hexen Circle? Because I do know that, remember, he does get along with the Hexen Circle, we find out at one point, even though they wanted to challenge him at first. And then he's like, well, maybe we can just hang out and have tea instead.
I mean, it's possible. I like the idea that because the primordial one came from another world, they quote unquote might have gained that knowledge from them, because
True.
there's a lot of Latin that's spoken within the Church of Barbados and the Church of Favonius, which I'm like, who the fuck knows about it? And I'll go into the little weird note because I love translating the language of this game. But let's continue on.
I also think, Venti is the second oldest Archon, and he's the second oldest Archon at the time of the manga, from my understanding, right? Like, that hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming.
And he's good friends with Zhongli, who we think watched the Sun Chariot fall. So it's very possible that these two have had many drunk conversations.
True.
And stuff like that as well, where just being these old souls, and also being these old souls could make it so that they have the information. But on top of that, we know that Venti started off as a wisp, and none of us are really sure what that means. But we know that originally, not only was Barbados worshipped in Mondstadt, but so was Istaroth and the Thousand Winds. And
I was just going to say that, yeah.
And we've theorized that Venti could have been a wisp of the Thousand Winds. So if Venti is a part of Istaroth, who is a shade of the primordial one, he could have a lot of family knowledge.
Yeah, and I think I brought this up in a season 1 episode, maybe.
Damn, bring back a throwback, Brandon.
Yeah, bring it all back. It's the finale. It's the season finale. We got to bring it back. So, but I think I did at one point theorize that Pongu, Purusha, and Ymir could be 3 of the shades, and Istaroth is the 4th.
Oh, interesting.
And that he's just sort of disguising the reality of Teyvat with legends, which is a thing they do in this game.
Yeah, we learned that with the stories.
Or maybe they're just eons from Star Rail.
Also possible. Also, just on that topic of Vanessa ascending, there's a lot of terrible negative theories about that. People think that she basically was sacrificed when she got there.
I mean, I can understand that. And
yeah,
because when you look into that panel where Vanessa is walking into this, it looks at first like a coliseum, but it looks ominous. It's very red toned, and you have this tower within these weird balconies and something on a rocky Earth-esque platform. And a lot of people have gone in and were like, yo, is that a panopticon or whatever the fuck? Which is a type of all-seeing prison. You have the central tower that watches.
That's the Eastern State Penitentiary, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And it's interesting that they picked that. If there was no little tower in there with that earth floating above it, I would have thought this is a coliseum. This is kind of like a hero's coming. But the fact that there is that tower there and it's more ominous, and the second those doors close, boof comes this falcon or eagle, and I'm like, oh. So I can understand the ominous.
But also when Vanessa sees it, she shakes her head.
Yeah, she's not happy.
Looks very unimpressed. Yeah, exactly.
And it's okay. I mean, this could just be, and kind of going back to Conria, the Conrian giant ruin guards have somewhat of a similar thing going on, where you have the central tower being the elevator going up into the command center, and then you have multiple different chambers, same as we see in that panel. And it could just be spaceship. I don't know. It could be so many different things, but the fact that we see Vanessa's reaction to it, and it's not oh, I'm seeing God for the first time. She's so unimpressed.
Yeah, it's so wild. And the first time I read it, I was looking at she's approaching it, and I thought what was behind her were treetops. So I was like, oh, is this in Mondstadt? But I realized when I was re-looking at it this time that that's just weird color shit, and there are clouds behind her. So she's actually, and then it later shows the outside of this door that's opening, and you see the Celestia motifs that you see in the loading screen. So she's definitely at Celestia, but it gets weird because the Celestia-like door opens up in front of her, right? She walks in, And like Al said, it looks like a giant coliseum or arena or something with that tower in the center. Higher up above that tower is something that I'm like, I don't know what that is. It looks almost like a piece of earth with like roots coming down. Not sure if that's what it actually is. Of course, that makes me think of ley lines or Irminsul. Yeah. And then that's when Vanessa shakes her head and looks unimpressed by whatever she's seeing. And then they show her from further back, and it's like she's in a different looking doorway that looks like old stone, like an old looking stone door.
It's like
which seems to close on her.
It reminds me of the doors from Enkanomiya in a way.
Yeah, like they just like they look old and like made out of rock or stone, unlike those original Celestia looking doors that first open up in that scene. And then it cuts, when they seem to close on her, it cuts to this like wispy spirit smoke emerging from the crack in the old stone door. And then that becomes this like spirit shaped version of a falcon as it exits from the Celestia looking door. And then that, of course, turns into like the shape of a real falcon as it starts flying through Mondstadt. And that's when Venti looks up and sees it. And he's like, talking to the traveler back in the current day. And he's like, she's still keeping track of Mondstadt after all these years. So I don't know what we're looking at. I mean, it looks like she was at Celestia. We know she ascended there because Venti confirms that. But I'm like, she goes through a Celestia door, then she goes through some like old stone door to get to the weird Coliseum Tower prison thing.
Well, Vanessa's ascension is pre-cataclysm, right? Or post-cataclysm?
I think it's post.
Oh, if he's awakening from his Deval and Durn fight.
Right. Because he basically went to sleep after the cataclysm, right?
Yes, he did.
I was actually wondering that because I read somewhere that the Mondstadt aristocracy ruled for 1600 years and that they didn't rise until the fall of Decarabian. So that would have been near the end of the Archon War, which ended around 2000 years ago. So if they ruled for 1600 years and we're seeing the end of the aristocracy, that would put it at around 400 years ago.
So right after the cataclysm, basically.
Yeah, like maybe 100 years after. But that's assuming that 1600 years thing is correct. I tried to fact check that and I ran out of time.
I mean, that would be interesting, though, because that would probably mean that Murata, we're assuming that the original Murata god, her name was Murata, right? We're assuming the original Pyro Archon died.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what led to, like, Vanessa being exiled, possibly, like, whoever the second god is, type of thing.
So that's another confusing point because they say she was given a seat in Celestia, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was one of the 7.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, I didn't mean that. I more so was just saying that, like, when Vanessa is, like, in Mondstadt, it's possible already that there is another god in Natlan, like a new Pyro Archon, and, like, maybe that's why they were exiled.
Oh, right.
I find it curious, though, that she's the only human, besides Farina, that we've heard being offered a seat in Celestia. I mean, Farina's technically an Ocean when she's offered her seat, her fake seat, so I wouldn't really count Farina, but Vanessa is the only human that we hear this about. And it makes me curious if, like, the Muratas are, like, half god, like, they're demigods.
Mm-hmm.
And that would make sense why she kind of had those similar swirly things around her and whatnot. So it does make me wonder if, like, she was more so offered that because she has a god in her ancestry.
So does that mean Diluc is a demigod?
Well, if he's a descendant of Vanessa or Lind or someone, but we don't know for certain. I mean, there's a lot of theories that Diluc's mom is a witch in the Hexen Circle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember which one specifically people think she is, but that is a theory. And I mean, he could be part witch and then Krapus is part god. And then you just got Diluc, man. Like,
and that's what keeps that ponytail up that high.
Yeah, we love that.
Magic. There's a fun Easter egg. If you go to the panel where Sino is, binding the power that Collei has, you can fully translate that. There are multiple different, like, written languages of Teyvat. And this one, it's a Latin-based one. At first, everyone thought it was like a Deshret script until that was confirmed not. But oh my god, the Ars Goetia, man, has its fucking claws on the balls of this game because it literally translates to kind of a prayer that you say during the lesser ritual of the pentagram.
Ooh.
Which is you can be a binding or invoking ritual. And Sino says Yahweh, Adine, Agla, which are all references to the Quablastic cross. Thank you for Citron on Reddit for like going through this and like finding each and every bit. Because when I looked up the first one, Yahweh, I'm like, Yahweh, which is the Hebrew word for God. But in this case, in this ritual, it means east in the element of air. Adina is Adone, which is south and fire. Aya, west, water. Agla, earth, north. So it's pointing to the 5 cardinal directions. And then at the top of the pentagram is the spirit, where you're either invoking or banishing something. And the fact that they do it within the day, they are invoking rather than banishing. Fun times. Fun times. Summon shit, people. I love going through, you can find it in the chasm, any written or like if you go into certain artifact domains or weapon material domains, there will be writings on the walls. And I love going to look at those because you can find some really neat Easter eggs. A lot of it is not relevant unless you're in the chasm, but I highly recommend.
I also love that the black serpent in that scene, it's like as he's sealing it within her, it's like I guess the weird energy prison that it's being placed into is in the shape of a pyramid.
Yes.
So I have one quick question for you guys before we hop into mail time, because Kirara is purring at my feet and I don't know what that means.
Oh my. I didn't know she was in defeat.
Well, I think she just fell asleep waiting on us.
Oh, right. Okay.
So if you guys could pick one storyline that we haven't seen in game to be shown in like 16 chapter manga, what would you want to see?
Ooh,
that's tough.
I'll start so you guys have you guys can
Yeah.
I would like to see Child's childhood, like him falling into the abyss, him running away, him, training with Skirk, and then re-emerging and joining the Fatui.
Now, are you talking about like involving playable characters?
No, I mean, if you want to say you want to see like, I'm guessing Brandon's going to say he wants to see the Sumeru Desert Trio.
No, but that's a good one.
Oh, damn,
Yeah.
I guessed wrong.
I would love to see that. I was just going to say, to me, I'm torn between literally anything involving the Hexen Circle or the cast of characters in Old Mondstadt pre-Cataclysm before Signora turned evil.
Oh, like a Rostam, Rosalie.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be cool.
I'm going to say the fall of Gurabad. Basically, the whole saga of the desert would be like amazing. Whether it is the trilogy, whether it is the Game of Thrones fuckery of all the Jin and all of Gurabad, let's just do that specifically.
Especially because it would be so interesting to see something like that, because then you could see like what the storyline is, the actual storyline is, versus what was turned into legend.
Exactly. And plus, like, it just feeds. I haven't watched The House of Dragon because I've been so scared to start anything after the last season of Game of Thrones. I sobbed at how bad it was. But it gives me those vibes, and I love Middle Eastern legends. I love history when it comes to like the golden age of Islam. I want to see all of it. I want to see these beautiful palaces. I want a Babylon reference. I need everything. I need everything.
And what about you, Tiff?
I've been thinking through the whole thing while you guys are talking, because I'm like, there's a part of me, obviously I gotta go back to my girl Rosaria and see where the fuck she comes from. But even her story that we do know about her, of her, like, being a part of that like band of thieves and stuff like that would be really interesting. But I think I'd have to say I would love to see the story of Guizhang.
Yeah.
I would really love to know more about her. And I think that story that we got from Cloud Retainer during the Lantern Rite, 2 Lantern Rites ago, I guess it was, when we finally got like that look, like a face to the name kind of thing. It really opened up more of I want to know more about her story. I want to know about her love affair with Zhang Li, because I'm 99% sure that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that Madame Ping and Cloud Retainer are also in love with her.
Yeah.
But I would really, I'd like to see that, and I'd like to see a giantess Guoba kind of bust it up into little pieces and go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be very
running
cute.
around with his little meat pockets.
Yeah. He is a little meat pocket.
Yeah, you're like, hot pocket.
Hot pocket.
Right. Well, now that I've asked my mail piece, we're going to actually move on to the mail. Thanks, Kiramra. So we have 2 messages today. Our first message comes from Alice, and they said, I am so hyped about your podcast. I'm convinced that we're going to have to team up with the Tsaritsa against Celestia when we go to Snezhnaya. Thoughts?
Definitely possible. I mean, they're collecting these gnosis for a reason. And we know that the gnosis are the remnants of the 3rd Descender, all chopped up like sushi. So, I think they're definitely trying to like resurrect the 3rd Descender, which is probably a being that could give the Primordial One a run for their money.
Definitely.
I think it's going to be really funny when this all happens and the Tsaritsa turns around and it's Paimon.
Stop. It's not.
No, it's going to be Bronya.
Bronya.
The moment when Tiff officially quits playing Genshin, because they've officially brought a Honkai character in.
We're like, done.
I definitely think it's possible, and I think it's something that Child alludes to a lot in conversation, in his like stories, in his like voice lines and things. A lot of the Harbingers talk about the Tsaritsa, and we've heard that from Venti that she's lost a love, and we don't really know what that means. And maybe that's because of Celestia. We don't know. So, and the assumption is that the Tsaritsa is also not the original Archon of Snezhnaya. So there's that curiosity too of like, was she in love with the Archon?
Or was the original Archon Cocolia and now it's Bronya?
The mom-daughter thing, yeah.
She's trying to get Sela back.
Oh,
Right.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, thank you, Alice, for your question. And our second message comes from our very own Al.
Hi,
Al.
Drop the bomb.
I will. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know how to go about this, but rip the Band-Aid off. So, hey, travelers, I'm stepping away from the pod. It has been an amazing 2 years, and absolutely, it's sad to say I gotta go, but life gets in the way. And as much as I would love to continue to do the podcast, it's kind of a rock and a hard place. Unfortunately, I gotta pick one, and I'm going to, instead of being a co-host, get to become a #1 fan, as I always have been, because these 3 are amazing, and they put so much good work into this pod. So I get to, instead of becoming being a co-host, get to be, just part of the community. I'm still going to be around. I'm still going to be cursed and whatnot. Maybe you'll see me some other time, probably in the Discord, on Twitter, all that stuff. But it's time for me to move to Natlan officially.
Oh my God.
Well, if we were moving in Natlan, you would have been just showing up.
That is true. I would have.
I mean, you're as white as the people there, so you'll fit right in.
Do they have ranch?
Oh my God.
I'm sure they have.
I'll just bring ranch.
Well, we're going to miss you so much, Al.
Yes.
Yes.
We totally understand. Life does get in the way, and I know we have ads on this podcast, but those ads people probably think we're getting like paid for that. That barely covers our monthly expenses to make this podcast. So it's not like we're like getting paid to do this. We're doing it for fun. It's a hobby. And when life gets busy, like you have to take care of stuff. You have like other priorities. But I just want to say I will miss your shenanigans and I love you. And I hope that we'll, be talking to you again soon.
Yeah, I love you guys.
Yeah. Of course. And Al, it's been amazing having you on the podcast for 2 years, being your friend before that, obviously continuing to be your friend.
You can't get rid of me that bad or that easy.
Like Al mentioned, we're not getting rid of her that easily. So if you are interested in staying in touch with Al, we're going to put her socials on the webpage for this episode. So you'll be able to check out where you can find her on Twitter, and make sure to join the Discord server because Al is active in there and plans to continue chatting and hanging out. So if you want to join the Discord server, you'll be able to keep in touch with Al as well.
Yeah, and thank you, Al, for being a part of everything and starting this and getting it going and working so hard with us as we put it together every week and things like that. And I will still fight with you about who has the best ass, just not on the pod.
just not on my.
I'm just gonna call you.
Yeah,
and have those
just be
arguments with you.
Like, hey, I took off that outfit. I took off the Shenhe outfit. She's no longer number one. However, I will always be there to debate the best ass of all Teyvat. Who knows? We might get a new contender in Natlan.
Yeah, we might.
Oh no, I can't handle more.
Get the forks. There's more cake.
We're going to Meropede to eat cake because we ate cake, right?
Yeah.
But no, Al, thank you so much for everything you've done and for finishing the season out with us. And like I said, travelers, make sure to go to bit.ly/shades of Teyvat to keep in touch with Al on Discord, or you can check out Al's socials on our webpage. That is the end of the season. Lots of bangs at the end of this episode. We will be back in the fall for season 5. And by we, I only mean 3/4 of us. But make sure to follow us on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or Twitter, Tales of Teyvat, to stay up to date on when our next season will be happening and what we're up to in the meantime. Additionally, you can email us at talesoftevatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you thought of this week's episode, what you thought of the season, and what type of episodes you'd like to see in the upcoming season as well, or any questions you might have for a Kirara mail segment. Kirara will be holding our mail until the next episode. So if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to send them in, whether that be email, Instagram, Twitter, or in Discord. If you join the Discord server, we do have a Kirara mail section where you can drop your questions. Until next season, travelers, safe journeys. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Al.
Brandon!
Bye, my chaotic nerds.
Have fun at the cataclysm.